All right, let's talk about some sex differences in friendships. Let's start with friendships where both partners in the friendship are the same sex. So here we have two little girls blowing bubbles together on the top, and we've got, four little boys running down the beach together with a flag, and they seem to have a mission. Okay. Um, Little girls and adult women tend to engage in friendships that are much more what they call face to face. They actually will. There's a friendship theorist who calls it stomach to stomach, which is kind of not exactly what is happening in these pictures, but face to face. Female friendships oftentimes involve looking each other in the eye, being aware of body language and things that the other person is doing. Oh, I'm covering up the boys. I'm going to make myself go away so I don't cover up the boys. All right, there we go. So in female friendships, there is a lot of face to face kind of talking, looking at each other, reacting to each other's emotions as depicted by maybe micro expressions or actual expressions or body language, things like that. Whereas for male friendships, there's a lot of sort of doing stuff together. Uh, Researchers in this area refer to male friendships as more side by side. So you'll notice in the little boy picture, they're running the same direction. They're not looking at each other. They're all running the same direction. In the picture of the men, they're not even shoulder to shoulder. One's got his back to the other one, but they're doing stuff together. And that's the important thing in the building of male friendships on average compared to female friendships is doing something together. That is not to say female friendships don't involve doing something together. For one thing, the little girls are blowing bubbles. They're doing something together. The adult females are having tea and eating something. So they're doing something together, and a lot of female friendships are based on belonging to the quilting club or, playing racquetball or other kinds of, doing activities. But by and large, male friendships are based on the activity, and they may literally have different friends for different activities. So may have my fishing friend, and I may have my, I don't know, yard work friend, and I might have my going to the baseball game friend, and like literally different friends for different occasions. Whereas female friends, a lot of times, it's maybe one best friend, and that best friend is denoted by there so much overlapping of interest that they do a lot of things together. They spend a lot of time together, and so it's like one utilitarian friend for females. It's like this is my best friend, whereas males are like, oh, I got my fishing friend, my jogging friend, whatever. And so, same sex relationships, if you compare what the patterns of female friendships and the patterns of male friendships, you see on average some differences. It's really important whenever we talk about sex differences to remind that we're not talking about any individuals. People vary on these things, but on average, we see these things. Okay, what about sex differences when we're talking about cross sex friendships? So, when one of the members of the relationship is male and one of the members of the relationship is female. Um, on average, these are more like female friendships in the sense that if you have one female present, you will experience more face to face time, um, more disclosing of, like, what would you call it? Failures or foibles than you would see in a male friendship. Male friendships, it takes a lot of trust between two men before one will say, something self disclosing that doesn't make them look good. That's not kind of a brag, but instead might indicate that they're worried about something or might indicate that they failed at something. Something like that. Whereas with a male female relationship, males are much more disclosing. They tend to be able to share their feelings better on average with a female listener. Female listeners share their feelings equally between men and women regardless of the like that. So females will self-disclose, and particularly sort of non-flattering, oh yeah, I'm not very good at that either, or I tried that and I failed, or whatever. Males tend to save that kind of story for a female friendship. So a little bit of difference. The other thing is, as people pair off in romantic relationships, a lot of times they abandon their cross-sex relationships. So a male-female friendship pair is hard to maintain when either one of them is now in a romantic relationship with someone else. And so the durability of male-female friendships is not quite as good as female-female and male-male friendships are. So here's something interesting. I might have already kind of brought this up. I feel like I did, but it could be from developmental psych that I brought it up. I can't remember. Um, Carol Gilligan, who was a researcher who tended to focus on um, women as her test subjects because she taught at an all-female Ivy League school, Wellesley College, and so her research subjects were female. So she was testing some of Erickson's claims about the identity crisis, and Gilligan found that Erickson's expectations of how we progress through the identity crisis into the intimacy crisis may only really kind of describe the pattern for males, and that females may go through a different set of stages or criteria. Gilligan observed that her female respondents expressed greater concern with making connections between people, getting to know someone, really sort of making a connection rather than just sort of being there with their friends. Whereas men, on average, express more concern with seeing themselves as separate from other people. On average. Now, remember, this is on average. So some men are very concerned about connection. Some women are very concerned about autonomy and seeing themselves as separate. But on average, women tended to express greater interest in making and maintaining connections, and men were more concerned with seeing themselves as an autonomous, independent individual. Um, so females, on average, spend less time alone than males do. Females tend to use conversation to explore the relationship with the person that they're having the conversation with, or use conversation to explore with someone else a relationship that the person that they're having with some other person. So when a lot of times people will hear two females, for example, discussing a third female who's not here, that'll be characterized as just gossip. But it might not just be gossip. It might be at least one of those two women in the conversation trying to explore the relationship that she's having with that third person who's not here. Am I wrong? Did I handle this badly? Am I treating this person badly? Is this person somebody worthy of being my friend? Those kinds of things are being explored. It's not necessarily trying to get the person that they're talking to just not to like the third person who's not there. That would be sort of the purpose of malicious gossip. Here, the gossip is focused on sort of exploring the relationship. So you might have conversation with your relationship partner and discuss, where are we going? How much time do you want to spend together? Do you want to set up like a recurring date that we always go get coffee? Like that would be exploring a relationship with the person directly. You might also explore a relationship with a third party to try and see how you feel about something, or how you handled something that's already happened or something like that. When females are under stress, they are more likely to turn towards others, and this caused a female researcher to coin the term tend and befriend. Um, so maybe you've heard about the sympathetic nervous system that gets activated when you're under stress. And when the sympathetic nervous system gets activated, your heart rate increases, your blood pressure goes up, your pupils dilate, you breathe more shallowly, you release a bunch of glucose from your liver so that you'll have a bunch of energy in your bloodstream, a bunch of adrenaline gets released. Okay, so that's when you're under stress. These are the bodily reactions. Historically, when you are experiencing that kind of sympathetic nervous system activation, the term that has been applied is fight or flight, right? That the sympathetic nervous system gets you ready to fight with something or to flee from something. This third category has been introduced. You might fight with something, you might flee from something, or you might tend and befriend because you are experiencing stress in particular. I mean, I don't think tend and befriend necessarily pops out if you're being chased by a bear, but it happens if you're under stress. And so, researchers have sort of looked for evidence for this tendency and seen that on average, females are more likely to nurture, to reach out to their connections when they're under stress. And so, that helps to calm them down. They may want to pet their dog, they might want to weed the garden, they might want to call their friend who they haven't talked to in a really long time, when they're particularly under stress, and that this might be a uniquely sort of female response to the sympathetic nervous system getting activated. Rather than fighting or fleeing, you tend and you befriend. Males, on average, are more competitive with their friends than females are. So males oftentimes will have their friend who maybe they love to go mountain biking with this friend. And the truth is, they like to mountain bike with this friend because that friend also sort of rises to the competition and they try and see who can jump off of the scariest obstacle, or who can get to the top without having to stop, or who's willing to go fastest on the way downhill, right? Like just little markers of competition along the way. And it's kind of more fun to have this be your mountain biking friend because this mountain biking friend likes to be competitive when you're out. Using conversation to communicate solutions. We're not here to explore our relationship. We're here to figure out what to do in this particular context. There is sometimes a what I like to call cross-cultural conflict that can occur when males and females talk to each other. When a female is expressing a sort of a exploring relationships kind of conversation, I don't know what I should do. I don't know if handled this right. Um, is it reasonable that I'm angry about this? You know, these kinds of exploratory things. Um, when communicating that to a male listener, he might say, well, what you should do is, and give concrete steps to like change your circumstances. And that might not be what the female speaker wants. The female speaker might just want empathy. Help me to explore this relationship that I'm exploring. Right. And that oftentimes can be a miscommunication between males and females. I would like to throw in also between parents and their adult children. I find that I'm kind of the male in the story when my daughter will tell me things and she wants me to go, oh, honey, I'm sorry that happened. I sometimes will say, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? She's like, I'm not here for solutions, Mom. So maybe it's a parent-child dynamic also, which is kind of a creepy thought that males might be speaking to females like that because they construe them as children. My daughter also would like to argue, as the mother of four children, she's also offended that I'm treating her like a child. But using conversation to communicate solutions means that a lot of times the conversation is not going to turn to how I felt about something, or whether my feelings got hurt, or whether I'm questioning whether we should even be friends anymore and things like that. It's not going to turn to that if the goal is just to communicate solutions. And then under stress, males on average are more likely to distance themselves. It's part of the fight or flight response, and typically distancing yourself from others is an example of flight. So if I'm under stress, I, as a male, may not want to call my friends and talk about it. I may want to hide my little hidey hole. Might be metaphorical hidey hole. It might be sitting right on the same couch as someone else, but I'm scrolling my phone or something. Like, I don't want to engage when I'm feeling like I'm under stress. I don't want to deal with it or talk about it. I want to just sort of endure. And so under stress, there's like this sex difference. And a lot of times when you have like a male female relationship, whether it's romantic or friendship, and the male is wanting to distance himself and the female is aware of the issue, like maybe the female is aware of the stressor on the male, the female may want to tend and befriend that male. I understand that you're under stress and I want to give you the kind of friendship that I have because this is my natural tendency. And the male may continue fleeing. And this can be, again, one of those, what I like to call cross-cultural miscommunications that can happen between males and females, where her intention is to make him feel better. His reaction is, you're actually making me feel worse. And then that makes her feel worse. And so this can be a really big, struggle between male and females in these kinds of relationships. All right. Well, I'm going to share with you my final ideas for positivity. One is maybe volunteer with a friend or loved one. So instead of, earlier on I had suggested volunteering, grab a friend or somebody who you care about and take them with you. and have this be part of, something that you are doing as part of your relationship. Make a standing date to meet for 1 hour activity per week. A lot of times people are reluctant to make appointments with their friends because they're not sure. This may turn into like a 3 or 4 hour endeavor, and I don't know if I have the time for that and whatever. But if you literally say we have 1 hour, I will set my timer, and we have to go home because we have other things that we have to tend to. I've got studying or I got to get to work or whatever. But you know that every single week you're going to see each other for an hour. It then becomes something that you can rely on. It won't run over. It will be uplifting. It'll be a benefit. And so everybody's more willing to do it. Grab a friend or loved one and play tourist in your hometown. Say, you know what, we've never gone downtown and checked out the old buildings, or, we've never gone and seen that big tourist attraction. Whatever. We've never done it. Let's go. Or we haven't been there in a long time. Let's go pretend like we're tourists and go to the aquarium or whatever. Have a monthly goofy get together. Maybe say we're going to dress up for some holiday each month, or we're going to have some kind of meal. Maybe we alternate between each other's house and cook something for each other, or we pick a different restaurant that follows a particular theme each month. So we can try different things out or whatever, but pick something and do a theme, so that you have something to look forward to plan for, to take pictures of, things like that. I have to throw in a little story. My mom and her high school friend, um, by the time they, I think my brother and I were in high school when they started this one. So, they're probably 18 or 20 years out of high school themselves. So they'd been friends this amount of time. And they were like, okay, we're old enough. I think they were 40 by now, right? And they're like, we're old enough. We don't feel like going out for New Year's Eve. What if instead, so this isn't monthly, this is annually, but they would get together, them and their spouses, and they would have a New Year's Eve crazy hat competition. And they were allowed to bring certain kinds of equipment or whatever, and whoever was hosting it that year got to decide what the base hat was. So some years it was a baseball hat, sometimes it was a cowboy hat, sometimes it was a fascinator, sometimes right, they had different kind of beach hat, different things. And then they were allowed to have brought their own stuff, but now they have to put it onto whatever hat they were assigned. And the women would go into separate rooms, the men would do something else. I don't think the men were involved in the crazy hat competition. I think they were the judges, and then the women would display their crazy hats, and they'd have a competition. Like, it's very dumb, but they have a picture for every year for like 20 years of their crazy hat competition. It's the kind of thing that sort of solidifies a friendship that can be very positive, and something that, now that they're in their 80s, they look back on very fondly, and they've both lost their husbands. And so, to be able to look back on these pictures and things, it's a really important thing. And so, having this kind of, and the goofy is the point, right? Having some kind of goofy thing that you and your friend do every month or every 2 months or whatever, just plan it out consistently, can be something that can be really a bonding experience. So those are my ideas for our final ideas for positivity activities. I hope you've enjoyed these throughout the quarter and that you've tried them, and I look forward to reading about them in your portfolio, to see which ones have worked, and maybe, or at least that you've tried. All right, well, thank you for a great quarter, and I hope you stay positive.